Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome members to this evening's meeting of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and to members of the public who are listening in via the Zoom webcast. Before I start, could I welcome Councillor Kevin Corby to the committee, and could I record our thanks to Councillor Nick Beggy for his service. We have a busy agenda for this evening's meeting, so firstly, to practical matters, we are not expecting a test of the building's fire alarm. So if the fire alarm does sound, could attendees please exit the building via the nearest exit, and the rallying point is the rear of the car park. I'd like to remind members of the committee and attendees to please raise their hand if they wish to speak, and to ensure that their microphone is switched on when addressing an item for the benefit of the webcast and the recording, and switched off when not. I'll refer to the scrutiny officer from Democratic Services if I need to record a vote or for any procedural matters. Thank you. And so moving first to apologies. Have we received any apologies?
Yes, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Karen Payne, Councillor Stephen Lambert and Mr Peter French. However, we have Councillor Raymond Payne attending as Councillor Lambert's representative.
Excellent, thank you. So the record of the meeting, and this is to confirm the meeting, the minutes of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 13th of July 2023. Does anybody have any amendments that they like making to these minutes? I'll propose the minutes. Can I therefore have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Powell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against, please raise your hand. And any abstentions? Thank you. Okay. Item 4, we come now to we had no actions from the last meeting, so we can go straight to agenda item 4, and that is declarations of interest. Do you have any declarations of interest to be declared this evening? No, there are none. Thank you. Petitions, and item 5 is petitions, deputations and questions. Have we received any petitions, deputations or questions?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 is questions with notice from members. Have we received any questions with notice from members?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, notice of motions from members. Have we received any notices of motions from members?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. And item 8 is consideration of any matter referred to the committee in relation to the call-in of a decision. Have we received the call-in of a decision?
Nothing has been received, Chair.
Thank you. Scrutiny Committee recommendations and outcomes. Following this committee's approval at the last meeting of the Economic Task and Finish Group, presented their recommendations on the Economic Development Strategy to Cabinet, on the 15th of August. And details of these recommendations, plus the response from Cabinet, are attached for the attention of committee members. I would also point out that there is a further section in our agenda this evening to further consider that matter. Does anybody have any comments or questions at this time on this matter? None. So I'll therefore draw this discussion to a close. And moving on then, review of the work plan, item 10. The current work plan plus the list of pending items are included in the agenda pack. Item A is proposed items for scrutiny, and we received 2 proposal forms for items to be added to the committee's work plan. Firstly, we have the proposal form from Andrea Grinny, Revenues and Benefits Manager, regarding the charging for care and support policy. Andrea has also provided further information on the timing of this work, in particular the distribution of a public questionnaire in November. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this submission? No, thank you. So I would like to propose that this item should be added to the committee's work. Due to its extent, it will affect a number of Rutland residents, and also that it will be a matter of public interest. But I would, however, suggest that instead of the committee simply scrutinising the draft policy and the results of the public consultation at the meeting on the 8th of February 2024, as is detailed in the proposal, that the matter be dealt with in a phased manner, i.e. a review of the draft questionnaire in mid-October and a review of the draft policy and feedback from the questionnaire at the committee's meeting on the 8th of February 2024. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Any abstentions? No. Resolved, the committee has approved the inclusion of the charging for care and support policy to the committee's work plan in a phased manner, i.e. a review of the draft questionnaire in mid-October and a discussion of the draft policy and the feedback from the questionnaire at the committee's meeting on the 8th of February 2024. Excuse me. Next, we have the proposal from my good self and Councillor Lucy Stevenson regarding the oversight provided by the Rutland Health and Wellbeing Board in the development of the plan for future health service provision for Rutland residents. I would point out for those who were not able to attend the pre-meeting that we did have information in relation to this from the Director of Adult Services. So with that in mind, does anybody have any comments or questions on the paper as included in the pack? Thank you. So this is a matter of public interest, but it is questionable, following the discussion with the Director, what impact the Scrutiny Committee could have on influencing or changing things. And I would therefore like to propose that this item should not be added to the committee's work plan as it currently stands, but instead a plan detailing health responsibilities for Rutland, together with key decisions and timings, should be presented to this committee in November. This will detail the development process for the current 5-year health plan for Rutland through to its completed form. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please show their hands. Anybody? Sorry, Councillor Edwards, I beg you. No. Abstentions?
Sorry. Sorry, can you put your microphone on, please? We need to record. It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Just take your time.
No, sorry, I was still trying to catch up with the bit that you were on and wasn't sure if that was a thing that I was for or a not sure on. That was all.
Let me just go through it again. It's not a problem. Not a problem. So, in relation to the paper that's in the pack, what we're saying is that the matter is of public interest, but it's questionable what the pursuance of that by the Scrutiny Committee would have in terms of influencing or changing matters as they currently stand. And I was therefore proposing that this item should not be added to the committee's work plan as it currently stands in the pack before you, but that instead, based upon the discussions that we had with the Director, a plan detailing the health responsibilities for Rutland, together with key decisions and timings, should be presented to this committee in November. And this will detail the development process for the current 5-year health plan for Rutland through to its completed form. Is that okay? Yep. So we I think we had to vote for those in favour. All those against? Any abstentions? You're recording an abstention. That's fine. That's great. Resolved, therefore, that the committee has declined to include the oversight provided by the Rutland Health and Wellbeing Board in the development of the plan for future health service provision for Rutland residents to the committee's work plan. But B, that a plan detailing health responsibilities, but approved that a plan detailing health responsibilities for Rutland, together with key decisions and timings, should be presented to this committee in November. And this will detail the development process for the current 5-year health plan for Rutland through to its completed form, should be added to the committee's work plan for discussion at the meeting on the 23rd of November 23. And that brings us to item 11 on the programme. We now have report number, is that okay, Jane? Yep. Yeah. We now have report number 138/2023 from Dawn Godfrey, Strategic Director of Children and Families, and Bernadette Caffrey, Head of Early Help, Send and Inclusion. And they're here to present the report. I beg your pardon. And Bernadette, I beg your pardon, is here to present the report on her behalf and give us a short presentation. The presentation will include information regarding the Send inspection outcome, the Send governance changes, and the Delivering Better Value programme. Bernadette.
And Chair, I understand that the portfolio holder, as I am the portfolio holder for children's services, I will give a report.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Yes. Well, as you have said, the purpose of the report is one, to inform the committee of the outcome and present findings of the area in Send inspection and recommendation for future development. The CQC Ofsted report, I did report on it earlier to Cabinet, and I will at this stage just read the summary. The local area partnerships arrangements typically lead to positive experiences and outcomes for children and young people with special education needs and or disabilities. Send. The local area partnership is taking action where improvements are needed. It has been, the full report is in Appendix A, and I hope everyone has read it. It did, however, point out areas for improvements such as neurodevelopment and mental health assessments. It did also mention service children who have outside general practitioners. More could be done for them. And it talked about there need to be more coordination across the various leaders. And this might be an area that Scrutiny looks at it in the future, say in about 12 months. Moving on then to 1.2, to raise awareness of the Department for Education, delivering better value. It's a programme for high needs block funding position. In brief, the Delivering Better Value programme is to improve outcomes for children and young people with special education needs and disabilities and alternative provision, whilst also hoping to make services better but as sustainable as possible and reducing the high needs budget. The Delivering Better Value is phase 2 of the Department for Education's intention to support local authorities to manage and address the deficit in their designated schools grant high needs budget. However, it is not just about making savings, but enabling local partners to work collaboratively with each other, with parents, to meet their statutory responsibilities for children and young people with SEND and those who need alternative provisions. Data re-SEND and alternative provision performance across education, health and care will be shared locally and nationally. The aim is to provide parents and carers with an accessible way of understanding how their local SEND and alternative provision system is performing, and it helps local authorities to assess their own performance. It includes alternative provision reform and alternative provision specialist task forces to improve transitions in early years and post 16 to institutions. Early language support for every child. To standardise the education, health, care plan for young children. I'll start again. To standardise the education, health and care plan. This plan is for children and young people up to the age of 25 who need more support than is available through special education needs support. The grant awarded is for phase 2 development and is £1 million. It has been applied for, and I'm very pleased to say we have been awarded that. This is a credit as to the officers, as is the CQC and Ofsted report. There are to be commissioned 55 local authorities, and the local systems are to identify the highest impact changes that each system involved can make to support their local children with SEND, and make plans to implement those changes as outlined above, and identify gaps within the provision of services for children with SEND. The partnerships will be responsible for co-producing a strategic local area inclusion plan. Sustainable positive SEND system changes and development will be a key measure of success of the Delivering Better Value programme. Rutland, probably because of its very good CQC Ofsted report, has been confirmed as a joint lead for the East Midlands Change Programme Partnership. So it's working alongside with Leicester City and Leicestershire. Good news also is that Rutland County Council is the banker for the £5.8 million awarded by the scheme. Moving on then to the high needs budget, and that's in table 4.2 of the report. So the high needs for 2022-2023, this is the Rec Schools grant, which is the high needs part of it. The total was £5.362 million. I think the latest is £5.49 million. Of that, the SEND funding for independent schools is £1.113 million. And for the SEND funding maintained schools and academies, it's £3.033 million. Now, there's been an increase in spending, and that has resulted in a £1.3 million deficit. That's in the high needs budget. This is due to, over the years, an increasing caseload, which is the main driver of this high needs budget. And out of area spending, and this is due to lack of in-house facilities that we have to send out of the area to for SEND children. And of course, there's various unknowns that need to be factored in. So how can the Scrutiny Committee be involved in the progress of the Delivering Better Value implementation plan? Well, I don't think there'll be any progress to really monitor until at least 6 months. So I think in 6 months' time, it could be revisited. Sorry? Yes, yeah. So that's what we recommend. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Smith. And I actually read the report previously as part of the LLR Health Scrutiny Committee earlier this week, and I'd actually like to also pass on the compliments that were made in that committee for the efforts reflected in the CQC Ofsted report for LLR, and I think you to be commended for your work. So, as well as being asked to note the inspection outcome, then the committee is being asked to advise on how it wishes, as Councillor Smith has said, if it wishes to be involved in the progressing of the delivering better value implementation. And I would like to suggest that if this is to be pursued by the committee, it would be appropriate, as Councillor Smith has already alluded to, that we allow some time for this to bed down, and that we consider looking at this possibly 6 months out from now to properly assess progress on the programme. So does anybody have any comments or questions on Councillor Smith's presentation? Councillor Payne.
As some people around this table know, I've got a certain amount of professional background in this area, and I promised Councillor Smith faithfully that I wouldn't rise like Banquo's ghost at the feast, and I'm not going to break that promise. But I do have a question around, particularly around the provision for service children. They're a notoriously difficult group to engage with, partly because the armed forces has a nasty habit. No sooner have you engaged with them, they whip them and their families off somewhere else. So I just wondered, if there are any particular plans in sort of tow to deal with that particularly difficult group of young people. Thank you.
Dawn.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't have expected a different question from you, Councillor Payne. So just in terms of ensuring that we do meet the needs of our service children, probably everybody in the room will be aware that there's been a new group of families and serving personnel moved into Rutland over the summer period. Prior to that move, we actually sent children's services staff, including SEND staff, to Cyprus to meet the children who were going to be joining us in Rutland, go through what their needs were, particularly in relation to special educational needs, and to ensure that prior to them arriving in Rutland, they all had school places, and that everybody knew what and understood what their needs were. So just to give that reassurance. It's an ongoing piece of work. We've got very, very close relationships with the MOD and particularly Kendrew Barracks. We deliver directly onto the base with the family hub services, but also we work very closely with the primary school that's actually behind the wire, so to speak, as well as our other primary and secondary sector. So it's something that we are very alive to, and as more children are arriving into Rutland who are from serving children of serving personnel, then that's something that we identify very early, and work very closely with the MOD to make sure that we understand as far as possible children's needs before they arrive in county, so that we actually have a plan in place ready for them on arrival rather than once they're here.
Shall I just
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Payne, just to get you up to date. We've got actually an induction session next week on the 27th at the base to meet new families. So what we found from experience, it's good for families and for children and young people to meet people and to get that connection. So our colleagues from our youth service, our family hub, the SEND team will be there to talk and meet with families. In addition, if we identify children, we have an arrangement, it's a national arrangement called MODLAP. If we have an arrangement where we're aware of children who may have additional needs, who are on the detachment and coming back to the UK, then we have an agreement that if they've already been through an assessment or have a plan in place, we don't expect them to start again and be reassessed in this country. So we're aware of those children, and we pick up their plan and continue with that. And that's in place. We are very aware there's a young population coming to us. There's quite a big cohort of under twos, so our family hub are aware of that. We are already talking with our early years providers, for example, and our primary schools about those children. So yeah, we're quite alert to it. It is a challenge sometimes because we get information, but sometimes we're not absolutely on top of it, so very close to the point at which families enter the country. But we work really closely with our welfare unit.
Could I just halt the questioning just for a moment, because I believe that we have omitted a presentation that has been prepared, and I apologise for that. That's entirely my omission. Is it Donna or Bernadette? I'm not. Who has it? Are you in a position to do that now, or would that be all right? We will come back to questions.
I just have one follow-up question, and then I'll be done, and I'll sit here quietly and behave myself. Okay. Thank you so much. You're a gentleman. The answer I received is exactly what I'd hope I received, and so thank you very much for that. Slightly left field, second question. How confident are we that all the good work that was done with the previous cohort, who have now gone to points east-west, that the documentation, the up-to-date notes, everything the receiving schools and tutors will need has actually got to where it should have got? Because my experience is so often that's one of the things where the system falls down. Not our fault, we may have sent it, but how certain are we that it's been received and understood?
I mean, I can give assurance that we have sent all the information to the relevant new school in relation to individual children. I'm not in a position, depending on which bit of the country, I should say, I can't give assurance on what a receiving school outside of Rutland does with that information. So I couldn't sit and give you a guarantee that every school in the rest of the country acts in the same way as I would expect a Rutland school to act. But I can give assurance that we, as a SEND service in Rutland, have fully provided all the information that a receiving school would require to meet the need of a child.
Okay. If Bernadette would, oh right, excellent, we've got it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and I will apologise. Thanks, Dawn. Thank you. Good evening, colleagues. I'll move through this, and obviously we'll provide the presentation because some of the text in it is rather small, so I do apologise in advance, and it's probably scattered with shorthand, things I'm not understanding and you may be less familiar with, so my apologies for that. Just very quickly to give you an update on the delivering better value, the grant process and the plan we have in place, and also just to explain how that links with the existing SEND recovery and improvement plans we have in place already. And then complementing that is some of the capital program that is underway as well. So these things sort of fit together. And as Councillor Smith made reference to, we're also picking up through this process some of the recommendations that are coming from our CQC and Ofsted inspection. Thanks, Jade. So a little bit about the Delivery Better Value report. The positive news is we started this work way back in 2018. We worked really closely with our schools forum, and we put in place our own Rutland SEND recovery plan. And so really what we want to do with that plan and the actions that are already in place is to move that into the next stage, which will be our Delivering Better Value implementation plan. Alongside that, we've had internal governance structures in place, But it has been quite internal, and we report into our strategic children and young people's partnership group, but we recognise, and it was tested through our CQC and Ofsted inspection, that we needed to put in place review our governance arrangements and put in place an area strategic partnership group. What we are intending to do is invite our colleagues from the NHS, from the ICB, to chair that, with our strategic director vice chairing that. So we're putting that in place. We want to involve more of our partners, a wider group, who have an interest and an involvement and an investment in our SEND service and system, and obviously our children and young people. We have a very vibrant children and young people's voice group, and also our parent care voice in Rutland is already involved in our governance arrangements. We do, as I said, want to incorporate the learning from the area inspection, and we have had a capital program board in place already, but again, we want to make sure that we continue to have a wider oversight of that program. Alongside that, we've had a Rutland SEND and inclusion strategy in place since 2017, which we co-produced with our colleagues in education, in health, and our parents. We want to refresh that so that it's current and reflects our current and future priorities. And all of that's really in line with the SEND and AEP, that's the Alternative Education Change Programme. That's the national programme that Councillor Smith referred to. And Rutland, along with Leicestershire and Leicester City, are the change partners for the region. And that programme was launched this week in London by our minister. Just moving on, just to tell you a little bit of the story, how we got here. Really, the development, the application process for the Delivering Better Value programme started almost a year ago. And we have done considerable amount, we have lots of stages. We worked with an external with external consultants that were commissioned by the DFE. We've done a lot of work, a lot of diagnostics, looking at particularly the pathway for children into a SEND system, to understand that, to challenge and test whether we made the right decisions, was it appropriate, what was the learning, what would we do differently moving forward. There is, as Councillor Smith stated, there is £1 million investment, and that is very much weighted against how we improve impact and confidence in the SEND system. And we had confirmation this week that the application for the grant has been successful, and we expect that by the 1st of October. It will be monitored very, very closely, and that'll be done through us reporting back in to the DFE through our DSG management plan. And without a doubt, DFE will be expecting to see a return on that investment over the next 5 years. So the things that we've set out and proposed were our key priorities, not least trying to manage the deficit in our high needs funding, will be tested through this programme. We used data. We went back, in terms of the diagnostics I referred to, we went back to 2017 and looked at children who were in our SEND system back to 2017, up to 2021. And I make reference there to the School Support Partnership. That's an initiative that we've had in place for a number of years, working with our schools and our education providers to really build their confidence in inclusive practice. So we've got a range of offer and interventions that's in our schools, our secondary, primary and early years settings, to help them support children in mainstream settings. So in a sense, some of that work that was already happening wasn't fully revealed through that, but certainly it was tested and looked at very closely in our inspection. So just in terms of that diagnostic, that process, thank you, Jane. These are some of the things we did. We did a number of surveys, and the numbers here, it's quite considerable for a county like Rutland. So we did a lot of case reviews. What was really impressive is that we looked at a lot of anonymized cases, children's plans, decision scenarios, but we had a real mix of reviewers to look at those. So we had a perspective from health, from social care, from parents and carers. from our own offices. So we really did quite a critical look at, as I mentioned, the pathway. How did these children come into the system? What would we have done differently? What would we do now? What's been the learning? So it's quite a critical and quite a challenging view on that. We had some listening forums, and there was lots of points where we looked at our data to understand what we'd done previously, what we learned from it, and how that might inform what an improvement plan might look like going forward. And we identified some key areas of focus. I won't go into these in detail, but I would just draw your attention to some of the things below. What is incredibly critical in this process is building our parental confidence, so that our families feel confident in the support their children, that the support their children need is recognized early and put in place, and that children can get their support as close to home as possible. So the intention and the sort of, I guess, what underpins our vision for children and families in Rutland is that their needs are met in mainstream education, as close to their peers and in their community. And there was reference made to placements out of county. Our intention is to try and provide children with their education and their life in their local community. What we realized through the exercise, that we needed to do more to understand our data. And again, that came up in our SEND inspection, where we need to have intelligent data that will drive our performance, that will inform what we commission, how we make decisions about planning provision. So that'll be critical in terms of us putting in place a more robust and a more intuitive performance and information system. And actually through all that is how we develop that whole change program. So this is not just about the local authority. As I mentioned, through process so far, it's very much around how we work as an area. And we've started to engage our colleagues in school, but they are engaged, as I mentioned, through the case reviews, our colleagues in education. So they're very, very critical to us being able to make a success of this program. Thank you, Jane. Through the development of the plan, we've had to obviously a key area you'll see on the top line there is how we're going to manage and bring about our cost avoidance over the next 5 years. So we've had to do a lot of work in terms of the trajectory around our spend, how we'll mitigate against the risk of that. And so this £1 million grant is not about saying offset it against the deficit in your high needs fund. This is about bringing about system change so that it will be sustainable once this grant is spent. And we have approximately 18 months to get this change program in place. So it is a challenging ask. These are some of the things. I'm sorry, I do apologize. It's very, very small. So you'll be able to see the detail when you get the presentation. But these are some of the things we want to put in place. More specialist support. What we learned through working with our schools forum, the school staff saying to us, we need more expert support around our children in school, whether that's speech and language therapy, OT, occupational therapy support, or support particularly with children who may have emotional and behavioral needs. So we need to build on what we've already got. We do have specialist teams supporting our schools, but we need to do more of that. We want to put in place that support, what we call social support. What we hear from families, despite the input from health services or social care, families still need that support from each other, from peers, in the community. So how do we put that support around a family and the impact it has on family life? And that might be siblings, it might be parents, it might be grandparents who become carers. And key as well, as I mentioned, in terms of building that confidence is our parental engagement. And I mentioned the data infrastructure. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. And I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the capital program. So we have had, for coming up to 3 years, a capital program grant from the Department for Education to deliver, expand and enhance existing SEND provision in Rutland. And we've had some really successful programs. We've had and excuse this send terminology, an ERP, an enhanced resource provision and a mainstream provision in our secondary school at UCC, Uppingham Community College. We now have expanded the provision in UCC by 20 places and another 10 places this year. So that challenge around providing children with special needs support in the county, this is what we've been doing to deal with that. We do sometimes get asked, why don't we build a special school in Rutland? Well, our intention is, again, as I say, to include children in their mainstream education. And that's not to say that children who may have additional complex needs will still get a special needs place. So our intention, we have remaining in that grant, we have just over £1 million, and we've had authority now to start moving into delivering the final phase of the capital programme. And we have what we've learned through the work we've done so far and what our schools tell us, we want to build more mainstream plus. So that's children who will be in a mainstream plus, in mainstream context, but get the additional support they need within that setting. We have supported a nurture provision at Edith Weston Primary School, and we want to build on that. Our primary schools tell us sometimes they want some nurturing space. They want a quiet space for children who may have additional need, who may struggle in a mainstream classroom with large groups of children. So we're looking for places, for spaces in primary schools that they can, as it mentions there, minor refurb by providing some grant money for them to be able to do that and support children in school. Another area that we want to develop is our alternative provision. So this may be for children who are out of school for some reason. It may be because they have periods of out of school. It may be in relation to a medical need, maybe a child who's been excluded from school, or a child that we are reintegrating back into school. So we have limited alternative provision in Rutland. The provision we do have, which is on the border, is very good and has had some excellent results for our children and young people. But we want to do more to build that on our secondary, maybe a secondary school site or possibly a primary school site. So that's our plan. We will begin now to work with our schools, and we go to Schools Forum on the 5th of October to put the proposal to them and begin to take in expressions of interest from the schools who wants to be part of this programme. And it's very clearly there, this is around capital. So in a sense, when we go and talk to our schools, then we're looking to them to be able to put in that revenue. Unfortunately, this grant doesn't come with a revenue budget as well. So we're seeking support from the schools to be able to look at what they want and how they will be able to build that into their existing structures or their existing resource. So we'll begin that. We'll do the expression of interest with our schools, engage our schools, and then begin that feasibility with them and look at what's achievable, and then the allocation of funding towards the end of this year, and then work to commence between January and June next year. And finally, I'm going to jump back to the DVVE just to get you absolutely up to speed. We submitted our application. Our funding is expected on the 8th of October, and the phase of the programme is between now and March 2015. We have been told that if we don't spend the grant, we can expect to have that clawed back. So you can imagine we're already, before we've even had the grant, we've started mobilising, and we're putting in place already things to be able to get us off the ground very, very quickly. And as I said, these are about projects having to be new or adding to existing ideas so that they're seen as being additional to what we've already got in place. And again, I think I mentioned earlier, some of the things that we really want to focus on. And I will stop there, and I do apologise. That was a gallop through the presentation.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll declare an interest. My wife is a special educational needs teacher for many, many years. I thought that was a fascinating, inspiring presentation. And now we'll return to questions. Are there any questions? Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One really specific question, which I'll come to at the end. First of all, it's clearly incredible work that's been happening within that directorate to be successful with the grant, to be identified as a lead, and absolutely rightly, the ethos and the principles are absolutely fantastic. This question slightly links actually to what Councillor Smith was asking about what Scrutiny can do. I have a slightly, and this is nothing to do with Rutland County Council, it is a wider issue. It's great to be able to assess performance, and it's brilliant to be able to identify gaps. My concern is that there will not be enough funding to deliver the ideal promises that have been made. And I don't know at what point it is helpful or not. Councillor Smith, do tell me if it isn't helpful. If this scrutiny panel were to be sending a letter to say, we're working really hard, we know that we've done really well, here's our evidence of impact. Actually, this is just not going to be enough cloth to provide the outfit required. I'll leave you to ponder that. My other point was around ICB, seems to crop up quite a lot. I know how hard the team work with the schools, etc. And obviously, Chair, we've been, wrapped up in that whole health agenda. Just a sort of query about ICB, particularly the neurodevelopmental mental health assessments. How confident are you? It's all very well saying this person needs this assessment. Again, how confident are you that there will be enough resource coming from health partners to actually deliver that and meet those needs? I think we could come up with a cynical answer, but I'm sure we wouldn't in a public meeting. Again, is that part of the same letter to government about that? And then one very final specific question, and you may not know the answer. UCC, with the 20 to 30 additional places, how many of those are Rutland children and how many are out of county? If that's an answer outside of the meeting, more than happy with that. Sorry, that was a huge ramble there.
I will start. So let's start with the ICB question. Obviously, in terms of going back to the area send inspection, it was a joint inspection Ofsted CQC. And it did raise some recommendations, as you rightly pointed out, around our engagement and how we work together, and some specific issues around neurodevelopmental and mental health services. Part of the new governance arrangements that we are putting in place is absolutely to speak and strengthen those area strategic partnership relationships, because I think we've done huge amount of and made some massive strides forward in relation to our engagement with education sector across Rutland and outside of Rutland, in terms of some of the special schools and alternative provision that we use. And we have got good relationships with our health colleagues, so we're not starting from a position of deficit. What I think we both, the ICB and ourselves, recognise is that we can strengthen those and think more strategically about how we as a system kind of work together in a much more collaborative way. And part of the new governance arrangements, and it's one of the reasons why we think it's really important that health chair the strategic partnerships, so that they're absolutely front and centre around that table. And certainly that's something that the Health and Wellbeing Board, we will be discussing with the Health and Wellbeing Board as well, to ensure that that happens, to strengthen, to continually strengthen that strategic partnership. I mean, I think it's fair to say that the ICB and our health colleagues as a system, because it's not just the ICB, it's obviously the provider arms. So, for example, Leicestershire Partnership Trust, who actually are the delivery arm, let's say, of health are under huge pressure in a similar way to local government and local authority. So, you know, I think we're all cognizant of that, and what we need to, I think, improve and get better at is kind of recognise where we can, and I'm using pooling budgets in the broadest sense of the word, not in the kind of, you know, official way, but thinking about how we use our joint budgets most effectively, that meets the priorities both from a health perspective but also from a county council perspective as well. So there is work to do there. But we're starting from a solid platform, let's say. You asked about the school places at Uppingham Community College, the Mainstream Plus. Burnett will come in, no doubt, but I'm going to say they're all Rutland children
We
at
would,
this present moment in time.
Prioritise Rutland
Yes.
children, and if the school gets an approach from another local authority, part of the memorandum of understanding with the school, between the school and the local authority, is that the school will come and refer to the local authority. But we would prioritise, and I have to say that carefully because it's not in the code of practice, but we would always have that conversation with the school. And if we have children from Rutland, we would seek to get them school, to provide them with a provision firstly. And then the school would refer to us if they get approached by another local authority. Then we make a decision if that's in the interests of other children. But if you would like me to get you the precise demographic, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, no, that's fine. That I think you've answered my question very thoroughly. Thank you.
Could I just pick up on the point that Councillor Stevenson made regarding the timing of any support? I was listening to something today about the history of government underspending on capital expenditure, an interesting topic. And so we would like to get guidance from you about when it would be best that we actually carried out this review to actually build a case that we might be able to write to our MP in support of getting additional funding. So the 6 months. I think my point, Councillor Smith, is that the 6 months is not, as I see it, some sort of fixed deadline. It's something that we should do conscious of the fact that government work to particular timetables when it comes to capital expenditure, and we all know that. And so Councillor Stevenson's suggestion is a good one, and we should just keep that at the back of our mind in terms of how we. I should shut up now, actually. Sorry, are there any more questions? I beg your pardon. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation and support. I think it's just leading on from that. Obviously, as a scrutiny committee, as well as noting the report and understanding, getting up to speed with everything, there is the questions how scrutiny is going to be involved. Councillor Stevenson has made a suggestion, and I think the suggestion was that we'd also come back in 6 months. I think if there was reference to the 18 months to get the change programme in place, I'm just interested to know, I think if we're coming back to scrutiny, we need to be very clear what we're coming back on, whether we're coming back. And so are there any key trigger points or decisions in that time scale where it would be opportune for scrutiny to come into? And at what point, as the chair has said, perhaps if we're talking about a letter, I mean, that presumably could be done quite early doors anyway, but actually, what are the key milestones, what are the key things along that route that scrutiny could add value to, and when are they likely to happen?
Thank you, Councillor Powell. I think that's a very helpful question. We have a reporting structure in place for the delivering better value, and we will have to report on our spend and implementation plan. Significant reporting period would be February 2024. So whether you would wish to have a report or oversight of what we're submitting before or after that, then that would be a helpful period, I think.
Just to add to that, the Department for Education, as I say, requires us to do some significant reporting in February 2024. As a result of that, there I would expect that will kind of ask questions, and we will have to look at kind of how we respond to the feedback from DFE as a result of that reporting period. The reason we said 6 months, it kind of brings us around to the March Scrutiny Committee, and that might be quite an opportune moment for Scrutiny to get that, to not just hear what we've fed back to DFE, but what they've fed back to us and what we are proposing to do with that feedback. And that might be an opportune moment for Scrutiny to input into and give your opinion on what we're proposing to do, and to kind of shape that for the next reporting period. That was the kind of thinking.
Councillor Powell.
Can I propose that we recommend those specifics to take forward to the scrutiny meeting in March, that with sight of that report, and then we can look at what scrutiny can do alongside Councillor Stevenson's point as well, whether there's something we can do in terms of the lobbying or letters in advance of that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the lobbying and the letter element, actually you can do it tomorrow if you want. That's fine with me. So what I would say is, in terms of any lobbying or letter to the minister in relation to SEND, there is no money in the pot from the Treasury in relation to delivering better value programme or the SEND and alternative provision change programme. So you're kind of flogging a dead horse there, truthfully. However, where you might add more value is around the statutory override on the high needs block. We can give you more information about what I'm talking about in relation to that. But at the moment, as you've heard, we've got a 1.5 million deficit forecasted on the high needs block element of the dedicated schools grant. There is currently a statutory override in place on that, which means it doesn't sit on council general funds. That runs out that's due to run out again in March 2025. It may well get rolled over, I would expect, otherwise the whole country goes bankrupt in relation to local government. But that might be a valuable area to focus the mind, because that's something the government currently could just she says could just, but they could, without it going through Treasury, they could kind of actually say that statutory override is going to be extended for another 10 years, for example. They don't have to, it doesn't have to run out at the end of March 2025. But that might be something that's maybe a little bit more specific that could have an effect.
So could we leave it that if you believe that there's something that we can do in the interim prior to March, vis-a-vis a letter of some sort, please come back with that. We would be absolutely happy to help with that. But in the meantime, we should return to the. Thank you for your presentation. So the committee is recommended to note the area SEND inspection outcome, and I think we all welcome that, and the delivering better value programme progress, which has been so thoroughly outlined to us, and advise how we wish to be involved in the progress of delivering better value implementation plan. So I will propose the recommendations, and do I have a seconder for these? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. So all those in favour of it? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So it's resolved that the committee has noted the area send inspection outcome and the delivering better value programme progress. And B, advised on how the committee wished to be involved in the progress of the delivering better value implementation plan, together with any other assistance that we can provide in the interim. Thank you once again. Councillor Smith, if you wish to leave, your group wish to leave, you're perfectly welcome to leave. It's a closed session after now, but it's entirely up
Quite
to you.
interested to hear. I've been involved in the transport, so I'll be quite interested to hear what you have to say.
That's fine. That's understood. Thank you. Okay. So the next agenda item is report number 140/2023 from Penny Sharp, Strategic Director of Places, regarding the Transport Network Review business case and post-16 travel options, which contain exempt information. And I've also been informed that the verbal update from Councillor Powell regarding the asset review task and finish group may also contain exempt information. I would therefore like to propose that agenda item 14B, asset review task and finish group, is taken before agenda item 14A, the economic strategy task and finish group, and that the public and press be excluded from the meeting in accordance with section 100 (A) 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, as these items of business would likely lead to the disclosure of information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. I would like to welcome the public and press back to the public meeting session of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And we will now proceed to agenda item 15A, the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group. Councillor Andrew Brown is joining us, we hope, virtually this evening to present the final report from the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group. Welcome, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would you like me to start?
So, are you going to give a short briefing, Councillor Brown?
I am.
Would you like to proceed? Would you like to proceed?
Yeah, okay. I'd like to start by saying that both members and officers found the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group process beneficial.
Andrew, Andrew, you're not close enough to your microphone.
Am I not? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's because I'm not turned up. There, is that any better? No?
We may have a problem at our end. Sorry, just bear with us a second. The technology seems to be struggling, but Jane is working and tapping away with enthusiasm. That's clearly a good sign. Can we try again?
Right.
Can we try again for sound?
Yes. How's that? Is that any better?
Wonderful. You're coming through clear as a bell.
Very good. Right. I'd like to start by saying that both members and officers found the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group process beneficial. This was because the group had started by being properly scoped, and there were clear and realistic objectives which were identified and were timely and also time limited. The meetings were positive and engaged between members, officers and external partners, with all parties working together. Members of the group had understood the topic under review and what we were trying to achieve and how it would affect the council and our residents. Positive questioning led to positive and productive responses, and this has resulted in the group providing input into the creation of the new economic development strategy as detailed in section 5 of the report. I'm asking the Scrutiny Committee to approve the group's final report. The committee has already approved the group's recommendations, and I hope that the committee saw the task and finish group as an example of good practice, and as an example for future scrutiny tasks and finish groups. I'd like to thank the officers for the support they gave to the group, and the fact that we've completed the task in less than a year is testimony to the hard work and experience of everyone who has contributed to the report. I think this is a working document that should sit alongside the local plan and other strategies, but we're going to have to be nimble on our feet and hoover up any potential levelling up money or other grants and subsidies which this or any other government may decide to give out, as no doubt they will be competitive. I have noticed there's a typo in the report on page 6, which is 154 of the pack, where it says that I actually met the Strategic Director of Places on the 4th of November 2023. I, as chairman, do have lots of tasks, and I am expected to fulfil lots of different things, but time travel perhaps isn't one of them. So maybe that can be amended in the report. But I commend this report to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Does anybody have any comments or questions that they would like recorded on the economic task and finish group's report? No comments from anybody? Yes, Councillor Edwards.
I was just saying thumbs up. It was a job well done.
Thumbs up. Thank you very much. Could I then just
Sorry, could I? Sorry, would I be able to make a comment? Just to echo what Councillor Brown said. Really, it was a really positive process from an officer perspective, and it really did add value in terms of what we were seeking to achieve. So thank you to the task and finish group for your contributions.
Excellent. Thank you for that comment back to the committee. That's much appreciated. I actually have one on the report. I would observe that the importance of delivering truly affordable housing to attract younger people to live and work in our community will be critical to the success of the economic strategy. Thank you. The Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee approved the recommendations of the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group at its last meeting. So today's motion is that the committee approves the final report of the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group. I will propose the recommendation, and do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. And all those in favour? Thank you, and I believe that's unanimous. Resolved that the committee has approved the final report of the Economic Strategy Task and Finish Group. And could I add the thanks of the committee for the work of Councillor Brown in chairing the Task and Finish Group in such a manner and delivering such a good report to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We now come to any other business. I've not been aware of any urgent business for consideration.
We have not been notified of any, Chair.
We can all heave a sigh of relief. Date of the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on Thursday, the 23rd of November, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the council chamber. And at 14 minutes past 9, I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your time.